There's one more question that I wanted to ask you, and then I'm just going to bring back the balance sheets because I know that this is something that regulators worry about. So you are on the radar of central banks. I'm sure you are aware of it, and that might become tricky for you at some point because they are looking at you as a danger to financial stability. And the reason is that you are like these very liquid banks. Can you see the balance sheets? You are building a monetary system on top, indirectly, on assets like USD Treasury and repo and asset-backed securities. And what I read in your paper, so maybe we can first get into that, is that you think this is much better than building it on top of your own speculative token. Because some stablecoins also issue a speculative token and then use that to sort of I think they didn't sort of use them directly to buy that, but sort of used it as collateral, I think. You can probably explain that better than me. But what I read in your paper is that you were saying, well, that approach has a cyclicality in it, in the sense that if that token goes up, liquidity of those, if the speculative token goes up, liquidity of those stablecoins goes up. But if the speculative token will go down a lot, then the liquidity of those stablecoins will go down a lot. And as I understood it, you were saying, we're not going to do that. We are going to use, at least in the first stage, the USD coins, repo, USD treasuries, because they are independent from how well our stablecoin is doing. There's not this positive feedback loop. Is that a correct summary?
Yes.
Okay, excellent. And I totally agree with that analysis. I think that's a very safe choice. However, one thing I was wondering if you had taken into account, what you are doing is happening on a massive scale. Not only are you doing this, a lot of other stablecoins are doing this, which are getting pretty big, I understood. At the same time, the repo market is insanely massive, and the banking system has been moving towards this sort of model on a large scale as well. And what you have now sometimes seen is that USD Treasury is not as safe anymore. We saw this, for example, when COVID first hit. And I actually got burned by this a little bit because I thought, oh, okay, I own some USD Treasuries. And I figured, that's the safest thing that can happen. But they actually went down like crazy. And a lot of scholars are arguing the reason for that is that they are all acting as collateral for a lot of highly liquid sort of liabilities. And so what you had is that you got fire sales in these very stable assets, which are in a way irrational, but because everybody was selling, because that's sort of when all of these contracts activate, like, the collateral is going down in value too much, we need to sell, or we need to sell our repos, for example. So my point is, even if you're not doing that on an individual level, perhaps you're doing this you're contributing to doing this on a systematic level. What do you think about that?
Interesting idea. So, are you saying that, like, if I go deposit $1,000 into Bank of America, that the Bank of America will end up holding similar assets like repos and USD treasuries, or are you saying that, like, for normal bank balances, say in the US, those balances are backed by something else than this sort of collateral?
Right. Okay. So actually, perhaps the deposits are not the best example, because of course US banks also still have a lot of mortgages and loans to businesses and all of that, but it seems that there has sort of been a large shadow bank system is being built that have other liabilities such as repo liabilities, but also wholesale funding, which is another name for interbank lending. And then they hold, they have used as collateral for that USD treasuries. But what happened is that when there was less trust, they tried to get rid of these liabilities. And then they all had to sell this USD treasury, which was over collateralized and was also I think the main message is that it is was over collateralized, but that because they were all doing this, had to do this at the same time, one of the safest assets on earth was still crashing, and it was because of that system.
Yeah. So. Well, and the reason why I ask about, because I'm just like, this is interesting, and I'm not personally super familiar. I'm just not familiar with what, with the trends in what, banks are essentially investing in. And so like, I sort of spend my time thinking about the layer of, collateralization that we're building on the blockchain and the end user software. And I've basically been assuming that, Circle and Coinbase say that issue USDC, that they're doing responsible enough things with that capital, and that the underlying, banking institutions involved are doing responsible enough things with that capital. If that's not true, then that's a problem. It's not a problem that I'm familiar with yet, but I'm certainly curious to understand it if it is a problem. If I guess I know we're like a little bit over the hour already, I'd be curious to talk more about that, whether on this stream or at another time, because that's not something that's on my radar, but it's something that I would like to understand if that's an issue.
Yeah.
What I will say though, is that I do foresee a similar issue to what you described potentially in the long-term version of this that we're aiming for. And this is something that keeps me up at night. So let me try to explain it to you. So, let's say that in the future, we get to the point where we have some further reserve stablecoin that's backed by a diversified basket of tokenized assets that are not fiat currencies. So the simplest canonical example would just be like tokenized gold, right? And hopefully there'd be like lots of other tokenized commodities and maybe even equities if laws allow for that, and so on and so forth, like maybe debt, whatever. But let's just say it's just tokenized gold and some other stuff. Well, if the protocol ends up being very successful, and you have sort of trillions of dollars worth of value being stored in this currency and transacted in this currency, well, that would then have created a lot of demand for tokenized gold, which would create a lot of demand for gold to like be locked up and tokenized. And so you might actually, at some point, you'd end up influencing the market price of gold and of any other asset that has been sort of sucked up into this system. And then if there was some negative demand shock where all of a sudden, 25% of the supply of the reserve token were redeemed and sort of all dumped at once, you could get the same effect that you were just talking about with treasuries, where if everyone is then all of a sudden demand for all these different assets is going down all at once, well then the value of them could be driven down, and so then the value of the remaining currency that hasn't been redeemed would correspondingly go down. And I don't really see a way around that. One sort of vague idea is like, well, if it's diversified enough, if it's like super diversified, so you're trying to effectively sort of like index the entire set of assets and the entire economy in the world, then maybe you have some sort of situation where and this is not like a sort of academic thought. This is a sort of like a sort of dumb, simple thought. But like if you think about it, it's like whenever someone sells some asset, they're buying something else. Like the capital sort of has to go somewhere. So it's all sloshing from like one bucket to another back and forth all the time. And so the sort of simple intuition is like, well, if you can manage to index like the entire thing, like all of it, then even if one thing is going down, something else sort of has to be going up in terms of demand. And if you've managed to index across that, then maybe your index stays more stable than any one sort of sub part of that index. Now, I don't know if it's logistically or legally feasible to end up building an index that's that diversified, but that's kind of like a fundamental intuition that that makes me curious about this possibility of having a currency that kind of so-called like indexes the global economy.
Yeah.
And that's one way to maybe deal with the problem you're talking about, because when people were dumping treasuries, well, they were moving that capital into something, right? They were buying something. And so if you had a combination of treasuries and whatever it was that the capital was moving into, then maybe you would have been okay in that moment.
So one thing I want to add to this, in financial markets, capital can also expand and contract. And so it is, I think, possible for everything to go up at the same time. And that's an idea that is also known as on the global level, it's known as the global financial cycle, which is a great paper by famous economist Helene Ray, which is talking about this in the international context. But that's just a bit of extra reading. We're going to go